If you're trying to add a technique to the way that you talk that's going to have the biggest impact, then that technique, in my opinion, might just be breath. When we look at words, there's a couple different components, right? There's going to be consonant sounds, those like B, C, D, F, G, and there's going to be vowel sounds, A, E, I, O, U, and things like that. Consonants in general do not push a lot of air through. In fact, they often very much tend to stop it. Think of like a G sound or a T sound or a D sound. Those are literally called stop sounds because they block the breath. Compare that to a vowel sound. A vowel, like your ah, e, a, all those sorts of sounds, to make them, you literally have to keep the breath moving. We can use this to an advantage when we speak because depending on the sort of impact that we want to have on our listener based on our breath, we may want to go heavier on those consonant sounds. We may instead, though, want to go heavier on the vowels. We're going to be taking a look at some of these concepts with another short form poem. Let's take a look at the text. We're just going to read it neutrally and then discuss it a little bit more. Almost home, holding the oak leaf I stole. All right. One thing you're also going to notice about this file is that we have lots of O sounds. Oh, this O sound, some people are going to make it with really loud, round lips at the end, like oh, oh. It's not necessary to do that. You can actually do it smiling as well. Oh, oh. This is a diphthong. It has two separate vowels to it. What you're going to find again in English is that when you have a diphthong, you take the first sound, you take the second sound, and very often you kind of squeeze them together. So you don't want to pronounce it as like oh, oh in most cases in English. Instead, you're going to want to pronounce it as just oh, oh, compressing the sounds. Let's take a look at some of our words that have this O sound. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the relationship between vowels and consonants. So we have almost, the most sound. It's like O, mo, most, almost. We have home, O, home. You want to make sure, by the way, when you're trying to link your vowels onto your consonants that you don't have any shifting. So it's not like it's just home. Some others, we have holding. Holding actually has the O sound, but it doesn't sound like a normal O, right? That's because of the L that comes after it. A lot of times when you have L's in the middle of words or at the ends of words, they don't actually sound like a L sound. Instead, they sound like an O sound. O. It's called a dark L. So when you put a dark L after an O sound, it's going to end up sounding more like O. And one thing you may notice about that is that there actually isn't any shifting or there's no real pressure like a L when you're making that. It's instead, again, going to sound like O. So again, like O, holding. And one other word that we have here as well is the word oak. Oak. Oh, whoops. Completely forgot a word. Our final word with the O sound is going to be the word stole, which again is going to sound like holding, right? Holding, stole. It's again that O sound with the L after it. So O, stole. O, stole. Now, one of the things you may be wondering is about why does this L do this shift? Well, one of the things I hope you notice about this L sound, when you do this O sound versus when you do like a L, is it allows a lot more air to pass through. And English really likes breath on sounds. What's essentially happening is we're taking this consonant sound, we're almost changing it into a vowel sound. So instead of saying like stole, which blocks a lot of breath, you end up with stall, which allows a lot more air to pass through. One other thing I want us to kind of think about in English is that in English, when we speak, English is putting a lot of weight onto the vowel sounds. It's putting less weight onto the consonant sounds. You can almost think of it as a proportional pie. The proportion of words in English you can almost imagine as being 80% on your vowels and 20% on your consonants every time you say a syllable. A lot of other languages around the world, though, are the opposite. They'll put a lot more weight onto the consonant sound and then instead go weaker on the vowels. That has a pretty big difference on how the word is actually going to end up sounding. So, for instance, if I take the word home, but I put 80% of the emphasis on the consonant sounds and 20% on the vowels, what that means I need a very heavy H, and I need a very heavy M, and I need a very fast O sound. So I might get a sound like hum, hum, hum. Versus if I take in the same amount of time 80% of the emphasis on that O sound and only 20% of the weight on the H and the M, I'm going to get something that sounds a bit more open, even if it's just as fast. Hum, hum, hum. Compare the two of those. Hum, 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 hum. Hear that difference between the two of them. This has a big impact, especially at the sentence level. To give an example of that, like if I say the phrase holding the oak leaf and I do most of my emphasis on my consonant sounds, it might sound something like this. Holding the oak leaf. Holding the oak leaf. Conversely, if I do 80% of the weight there on the vowel, it might sound more like holding the oak leaf. Holding the oak leaf. Pretty big difference there in terms of the sound. Now, let's talk a little bit about our little poem here. So we have this situation where we have a speaker. We have a person who's almost home. They're holding an oak leaf, but there's also the kind of this sense of guilt, right, with the stealing. Okay. One of the things I'm thinking about is if they're almost home holding the oak leaf, I'm almost imagining them like kind of like running away from the crime. So one of the things that I can see them thinking about maybe is having a lot of breath, lots of heavy breathing. Just like when you run, you're like, so that could work really well, especially for our first couple lines, by giving more space to the vowel sounds and less space to the consonant sounds, and kind of seeing what the impact that that has. So let's just kind of pant for a moment, just like, and then we can add in the words. Let's add that first line. It's like almost home. See how heavy the vowels get, and see how weak the consonants get. Almost home. And then maybe we continue running in the second line as well. So again, almost home, holding the oak leaf. And then maybe we arrive and there's that sense of relief, and now we don't have to pant so much. Maybe we could start cutting breath, and this will be a nice way we can add some contrast in our poem as well, because American English, again, wants lots of contrast. When you have a pattern, you want to break the pattern as soon as you can. So that last part might just be like, I stole. And then the breath just dies. So let's put that all together, playing around with breath a little bit. Pant a little bit for a moment, and then say the rest. And again, our last line, we will then cut breath and go a little heavier on the consonant sounds. Almost home, holding the oak leaf I stole. If you're looking for more ways to play around with your voice and add new techniques to the way that you communicate with the world, be sure to check out this video here.